Okay, חברים יקרים. Good morning everyone. I'm happy to open this session on גיור, a very hard topic. In Israel and outside of Israel. So we have three distinguished speakers, all three of them are writing tremendously on גיור. Professor Broyd from Amori, Professor Abiv from Bar-Ilan, and Fisher now from Ouniversity, right? And who wrote a lot on גיור. So the one thing I want to say before we start is that because we have a short session after this session and a short break, usually we have a break of half an hour, we have only 15-minute break, so we must finish this session on time. So what I suggest is that we go to give the three speeches and then questions afterwards, all of you together. So please stick 15 minutes each one of you, or 70 minutes, and then we'll go for questions. Professor Broyd,
I'm actually not really speaking about conversion. I'm really going to speak about something. I'm really going to speak about the convert rather than conversion. And I guess I want to use this as an opportunity to reflect. I sat for more than 15 years doing conversions in America, and after you do conversions on a practical level, you maintain a lifetime of interacting with the convert. And you answer questions, not only during the conversion process, but you answer questions from converts after they convert. And one of the recurring questions you get from a convert is the convert calls up after they converted and they say they encountered this halakha. Does this halakha apply to me because I'm a convert? Does it apply to me differently than because I'm a born Jew? And over the course of my many years of doing conversion, I began to write analyses of what I call Hilchot Geirin, which is not Hilchot Geirut. Hilchot Geirut is what are the standards for becoming a convert. I've written a few times about that as well. But what interests me now is what I call Hilchot Geirin, which is we are running a community in America and in Israel that's sociologically absolutely unique historically. There are a large number of converts. Martin Marty, a famous sociologist, points out that conversion has become an insignificant thing in America. It used to be, if you went way back, after you converted, they killed you. That really cut down on the conversion rate. But even if you just go back 50 years, there was overt discrimination both within the Jewish and the Christian community. So Jews didn't convert to Christianity because they became second-class Christians, and Christians didn't convert to Judaism because they were looked down upon. And this has dramatically changed. In one of the synagogues in my neighborhood, the common estimate is 10% of the community is converts, and this is an Orthodox synagogue. And 20% of the community is 1 degree of separation from a convert, meaning either they're a convert or a parent or a close relative is a convert. And then we have people who have questions that are similar to converts, which is their mother is Jewish and their father is not. Now, they're not a convert at some technical halachic level, but they have many of the questions similar to a convert, which is how do I relate to my non-Jewish family? And what's happened in America, I've noticed just by dint of talking to converts, is we've developed categories of Hilchot Geirin. I'm in the process of publishing a work called A Concise Code of Jewish Law for Converts that collects all the cases in halacha, all the cases in Jewish law in which the answer to questions of Jewish law for a convert is different than for a born Jew. Now, I guess you want to start with a foundational question, which is shouldn't be. The Torah says explicitly that there should be one law for the convert and for the born Jew. But we all know in a Jewish law conference that the Bible doesn't govern us at all. And it's important to understand where this comes from. Although the Gaonim adopt the view that there's only one law, and they reject the idea of loving the convert as a special mitzvah. The Rambam is adamant that the Gaonim are wrong and that there's a special mitzvah and unique rules associated with loving the convert. And so let me start out with the obvious observation. I can't love the convert unless the first thing I make the convert do is identify himself. Because how can I treat you special if you won't acknowledge your specialness? And this starting point of the mitzvah of loving the convert throws the monkey wrench in the process. Let me give you just a very simple example. The halacha is brought down clear as day that as I allocate invitations to my house on Yom Tov, I have a table that holds exactly 22 people, and many of the meals are open on Yom Tov, and they're always full. The Shulchan Aruch says as follows: you should invite the convert before you invite the born Jew. How come? You know the answer. Because Yom Tov is family time, and the convert has no family. So you need to expend to them extra effort to invite them for the Chag, because they shouldn't be alone. Everybody goes to their family for Chag. On Yom Tov, a convert will feel particularly alone, and you have to thus make efforts to invite them to your house. So it goes back to an American law problem, which bothers us very much. It's the affirmative action discrimination problem, which is if I want to identify who the converts are so that I should invite them over, the first step is I have to go to you and say, are you a convert? Are you a convert? Are you a convert? Who's a convert? I want to invite a convert. And the convert frequently says what? I don't wish to be identified as a convert. I wish not to be loved. Please don't love me in any sort of a special way. Your special love further isolates me and distances me from the community that I want to fit into, which on a social level highlights the different kinds of converts we have in our community. We have 3 different kinds of converts into America. They're very, very, very different. One kind of convert is the ideological convert who wants to convert to Judaism because they encountered the biblical truth and they want to join the community. These people like to be highlighted as converts. As one of them says, I used to be a Catholic priest, and now I'm a Jew. Do you want to hear my story? The second one is a person who's marrying for the sake of marriage, and they wish to deny what's going on fully and completely. And not only that, they don't feel alone at all, because the whole reason that they're marrying is to have family. And the third kind of convert is the person who says, I'm not a convert at all. My father is Jewish. For whatever technical reason, my mother isn't Jewish, but my name is Yechezkel Goldstein, and I'm learning in yeshiva. And after 12 years of learning in yeshiva, my parents finally told me that my mother isn't Jewish. So I'm here to convert, but I'm not really a convert in the social sense of the word at all. I'm well integrated into my yeshiva. I'm getting my conversion because it's the final step before I get smicha and enter the rabbanut. So these people don't self-identify as a convert at all. They're getting what the Dayanim who do Gerut call an upgrade rather than a conversion. And the whole conversion ritual makes no sense for them, because you stand with them and you go through the ritual found in the Shulchan Aruch, which is, do you know the Jews are oppressed and abandoned, and if you join us, you might be penalized. And you're talking to somebody whose name is Yechezkel Goldstein. Sort of the whole colloquy makes no sense at all, because of course he knows this. He's been part of the community, and he has no other God, and he has no other religion to go to. So these 3 different kinds of converts create very different halachic paradigms. There are, in fact, 6 different categories of issues when it relates to Hilchot Gerim, and they're very different in their nature. I guess I'll start with the first one. The first one is what I call transition issues. The transition issues are cases where yesterday I was a Gentile, today I am a Jew. How do I process that transition? You want me to give you the cutest one? You wake up in the morning and you cook yourself breakfast, and then you go convert in the afternoon, and you come home and you immediately call the rabbi who converted you, and what do you ask? Can I eat my breakfast leftovers? They are bishul akum. Okay? That's what they ask. I cooked it. Can I eat it? I cooked it. Can I eat it? This is a fascinating question. Or they convert in the middle of Sphira, and they want to know if they count Sphira to Omer with the bracha. They count it until then.
Like someone has bar mitzvah.
It's a much harder case because a bar mitzvah boy is kvar b'chinuch and was Jewish. It's a harder case. There are lots of fascinating transition issues that focus on the question of how do I do the transition from being a Jew to a Gentile, going from being a Gentile to being a Jew. They, thank God, pass. In the sense of transition issues are temporary, but there are very fascinating ways to think about mitzvot, because it allows you to ask the question of what happens when I convert. There's an Achiezer that talks about a Shabbat conversion. Okay? Now you'd say, well, you can't do conversions on Shabbat, but sometimes they did for various emergency reasons. And he has a fascinating conversation about whether it's possible to be obligated in only half of Shabbat. Fascinating question. By the way, there are many examples of this where there are what we call transition issues relating to the change. Then there are some mitzvot that are idiosyncratically unique. They're mitzvot that relate to a convert and the convert's non-Jewish family, where the temple of the mitzvot is different. Like the mitzvah of kibbud av ve'em, respecting your parents, is simply categorically different for a convert. At some level, it's stricter. At some level, it's more lenient. But it's a totally different kind of mitzvah from the perspective of halacha when you talk about the relationship between a convert and the convert's non-Jewish family. The third category is the unique mitzvah to love a ger. How do we think about the mitzvah to love a ger? As I mentioned before, the Gaonim said the mitzvah is not existent. It's just like the mitzvah to love any Jew. But the Rambam says, no, there's a special mitzvah to love the ger. Sometimes the mitzvah to love the ger entails the mitzvah to resolve halachic questions leniently. That's the view that Rabbi Feinstein takes. In a very famous tshuva, he says, V'ahavta es a ger means when you have questions of halacha relating to a convert, you should resolve. You should resolve them in the congregate, in the converts, in the way that's most beneficial to the convert. And that's the fulfillment of the mitzvah of V'ahavta es a ger. I'll give you sort of a classical example. You have two mitzvot, you have two people who you can do a mitzvah to simultaneously. You see the donkey of two people with its load undone, a born Jew and a convert. So a very famous halachic authority says you should stop and unload, help the donkey of the convert first, because that way you fulfill two mitzvot. One of which is the mitzvah of Prikatina, and the other is V'ahavta es a ger. Now you could disagree with that, but Rabbi Feinstein says in a more general way, V'ahavta es a ger puts its thumb on the scale so that you should resolve questions of Jewish law in a way that is favorable to the convert. So that's his standard analysis. He does it a few different times. He says the mitzvah V'ahavta es a ger inclines you to rule this way. On very technical matters of halacha, where you don't readily understand what V'ahavta es a ger has to do with anything. But he says, because this person is a convert, they're entitled to rely on a more lenient view than a born Jew, because that's a fulfillment of the mitzvah, V'ahavta es a ger. And then, of course, there are the mitzvot that we don't like. In a sense, the mitzvot that stigmatize converts, that make us, I guess, some of us somewhat queasy. Converts have different marriage rules. They can't marry a Kohen. They can't marry a mamzer. They have unique statuses in halacha, some of which make us wonder what's going on, but nonetheless they're there, and you have to take a grip on them. And then, of course, there's the question of converts and srara, where the Gemara here says explicitly that converts can't hold positions of srara, and it produces an elaborate conversation about what is modern-day srara. Is it a Rav Rashi? Is it the Nasi HaMedina? Is it a synagogue rabbi in America? The practice of yeshivot in America is to give smicha to gerim and to let them be synagogue rabbis, and that's not the practice in Israel. It's because in America a rabbi is a servant. And in Israel, maybe it's a position of authority. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just playing with you because we're here. But that's the practice in yeshivot in America is converts get smicha, the practice. And not only smicha, they get yad and they're yoshe shadim. Not so the practice in Israel, where the Rabbanut hesitates to give smicha to converts, and certainly hesitates to give dayanut license or more. And finally, of course, there's the old dispute among the Rishonim about the nusach hatfilah for a convert, with the Rambam laying out what is the normative rule, which is the convert says Elokeinu v'Elokei Avotenu, and Rabbeinu Tam saying he does not. But even if you accept the Rambam's view, there's lots of details that are subject to dispute. I'll give you just the one that is widely discussed, which is the bracha of Shaloah Sanigoy, where you'll see even those who hold like the Rambam and say in general the convert says everything, not here. Here this is a factual historical claim, and the factual historical claim can't be made. That's sort of the standard halacha psuka. So there are many aspects of Hilchot Tefillah where we answer questions differently for a convert than for a born Jew. So I've sort of found it to be a fascinating foray. You spend your whole life examining Shisha Sidrei Mishnah from the perspective, from your own perspective. And all of a sudden you look up and you go through Jewish law from the perspective of the convert. I have close to 300 examples now where the normative mainstream Jewish law for a convert is different than the normative mainstream Jewish law for a born Jew. And I'm starting to classify them, categorize them, explain them, disagree with some of them, and understand them. But the most interesting social phenomena, of course, is how common these questions have become. A conversion is mundane in America. It's a routine thing. It runs all the time. I spent 10 years supervising conversion in the southeast United States, and the thing that struck me most fascinating during those 10 years was how unimportant it was. How the kinds of questions that you see halachic authorities talking about 100 years ago, you don't see anymore. Parents come in and say, my children are converting to Judaism and I'm a Protestant minister. It makes me so happy. They finally found God. 100 years ago, they say, it makes me so happy because I'm going to have my community kill them. Here, it's totally over. People come in and they're very happy with whatever religion people want, and it's dramatically changed the sociology of conversion so that it's unimportant. It's such a dramatic change, at least in the United States, that the process of conversion, we open our doors widely to people who want to convert. I'll just stop and say as follows. It gives rise to another phenomenon which we're very uncomfortable discussing, which is the rise of apostasy to Christianity. But that too is unquestionably going up in our community, because just like we have opened our gates wide to people who want to leave, we have opened our gates wide to people who want to arrive, we've opened our gates wide to people who want to leave. And there's a noticeable exit rate. I just sat with the director of a Christian legal advocacy clinic in Washington, and he reminded me that we were classmates in elementary school. And so I stopped and I said, but you were Protestant. And he said, oh yes, I converted when I was 20. Didn't know what to say. I said, okay. I said, what Americans say, I said, I hope you find happiness in your new religion. That's what I said. Because that's the American thing to say. But what's happening in our community is not only there's an increased entry rate into Judaism, there's an increased exit rate from Judaism. Not people who are becoming secular or this or that, but people who are looking around and deciding it's so much more fun to be a Methodist. Have a wonderful day. Those fine words, presentations.